Get ready for a rough ride. I'm not a doomsday guy. I'm not here to talk about the end of the world. I'm not even here to say that Jesus is coming very, very soon. I'm not saying those things. I'm here to tell you and give you a warning of some rough patches that are coming. I've talked about this the last couple of years. And we, as a body of Christ, you just have to be praying in the spirit. You have to ask the Lord for discernment, and you have to recognize what's going on and become more financially literate and be just well versed in some of the news that's going on, and don't be subject to the propaganda and the things that the news will tell you. If you've learned anything, right? If you don't listen to Jim Cramer and MSNBC and these guys, and they tell you, what's good, what's not. If you've seen any indication of what they're saying, and then what happens a week or two later, go back to 2008 or whenever, you will see that they're telling you one thing and then something else is going on behind the scenes. And so that's why you have to be alert, you have to be literate, and you have to really just be in the spirit in prayer and asking the Lord for discernment. So I'm going to go over a couple of things in this video just to get you guys up to speed and just give you just my take on what's going on, as well as what everybody else now in the world that's waking up, they are realizing. You see the signs, the times. This is not, conjecture. This is not something where you're just like, oh, well, it could get worse. It could not, right? A year ago, people thought it was a joke that we would be even in some kind of a recessionary period. Now people are saying, well, it could be a bad recession. It could be a depression. And I've said that it's going to get bad for a little bit. And I've said even before in some videos that the US dollar will collapse, right? And so I've even said years ago that we will go back to some kind of a gold standard or some kind of a pegging to something that's tangible, not this fiat currency that we are currently living in. And so with that, we all, if you've studied economics and history, we know that back in 1971, we effectively ended the Bretton Woods Agreement by going off the gold standard. And now, for what has been more than 50 years now, we've been on this, essentially this destructive train where you just have these periods of inflation, of just prices, the power, the value of the dollar just diminishing, even though we have these momentary periods of, oh, I'm getting more money and this and that, but the spending power of your dollar has been decreasing for a long time. The rich are getting richer, and you have everybody else, me included, poor, middle class, whoever, at taking the brunt of this on the bad end of the system. And so this is what's been happening, and we are at the end of this system. And so if you haven't read recently, right, for the first time in history, it's being reported that the U.S. Federal Reserve had operating losses. So this was dating back to September 2022, I believe, but it was just released a few weeks ago. This is big news. This is not some, like, you find it off some deep dark web. This is like front page of Wall Street Journal type of stuff. And so you have all these things happening in succession. The banking stuff, we all know about that. The collapses, second, third largest banks, and all that stuff. But what people don't understand is that there's an international presence that is more and more being brought to light. I talked about this since last year, I think a couple of years before that, with the BRICS nations. Other people have been talking about this for a longer time, right? And people are now just realizing, oh, wait a minute, what is this BRICS thing? China, Russia, and the OPEC Plus even, and then I think like 142 basically nations. They are trying to have a coordinated attack, and I'm saying coordinated attack, to get off the US-based Federal Reserve, the US dollar. And this is called supposedly Project Sandman, Operation Sandman. If you haven't heard of it, basically it's this coordinated attack. And the kill shot basically is that there's going to be some kind of simultaneous selling of the US Treasury, something in excess of, I think, like $2 trillion, probably all in a day or two, which will intentionally collapse the U.S. debt market, and then followed by the stock market shortly after. It's going to be a catastrophic event because they're doing this on a coordinated basis. And the U.S., these events will basically freeze the U.S. economy, obliterate the value of the U.S. fiat dollar that basically cover all these assets that you and I know of in the U.S. that we're living off of. But there has to be some trigger events, and most of these trigger events are basically have been met. And this is stuff that's in the news now. right? So basically meeting the petrodollar. So moving off of the petrodollar. So recently, I think the Saudi Minister of Finance, Mohammed Al Jadeen, told Bloomberg TV during a WEF, World Economic Forum, Davos interview that the Saudis will gladly accept all currencies for settling oil transactions. You've seen the yuan, right, with China and Saudi Arabia. You've seen the continued strengthening of the Russia-China stuff and trade, and you had the oil being, pumped out from Russia to all these other countries. There's a lot of things going on that people are not really understanding because it's a lot of information, right? It's a lot to digest, to get into, the situation in Pakistan and India, looking at other countries and their difficulties, Cuba, right now, Argentina, some of the inflation, all this stuff is happening, but people are too focused on the US, this bubble that we are in. But if you haven't woken up to the BRICS system, Brazil, India, these guys, South Africa, Kenya, somebody talking about the Kenyan president and saying some stuff, these things are happening right before our eyes. These are tangible, real stuff that's happening, a coordinated effort to move off the petrodollar system. And then you have other trigger events, right? Tensions behind the US and China and Russia, and then some operational reserve currency that is not the US dollar for the BRICS to come online. And so these things are all happening, and the trigger events, for the most part, have been met. Possibly a couple more things, but all the stage is being set for these guys to have a coordinated attack on the US dollar. Now, a lot of people saying, okay, so the white hats, Trump and these guys also trying to take down, there's a bigger, broad effort of taking down the globalists, right? So if you know anything about Rockefeller, Carnegie, all this stuff, right? The global elitists, these guys, you know what I'm talking about with them controlling this stuff. And so let me go very quickly to some of the classified document leaks and stuff, right? So the more you look into this, the more you realize there's something fishy going on here, right? So at first, people reacted. Oh yeah, all these classified documents, which looked legitimate, they have been validated as being legitimate. But then you start questioning certain things, right? The 21-year-old that supposedly, he got caught, arrested, whatever, that had access to these classified documents, like, you have to question you have to have critical thinking in this. Like, why would this, how and why would this guy have it? Suddenly, it's just so conveniently, available to the public. This guy had it. So it's one of two things. Number one, he's a government plant, right? The guy was literally planted there. He made, whether you want to say actor or just a fall guy, whatever, he was inserted there. And he did all this stuff, through Minecraft and the Discord and all that stuff. And it's being used. This person is being used as a pretext to basically shove the Restrict Act down our throats. I've talked about how there are things that the government does. If you're not awake, you realize that certain measures, whether it's gun control, whether it's violence, or any of these things, right? Even the vaccines, you usher in something through an act or an event. And so they're trying to shove the Restrict Act down our throats under the guise of national security. So at this point, it's going to be like everybody's gonna, cry wolf. Hey, like we need more security. We need tighter security. Please, please, please pass the Restrict Act. Please, 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 censor and restrict these channels. Take down Minecraft. Take down Discord. Those kind of, that kind of outcry is what they want and what will look more digestible to the public once they say, hey, we need to do this under the guise of national security. Now, that's one option. The other option is that this guy, this 21-year-old, received documents from an outside source, somebody else, and he was a legitimate whistleblower for this country. And so, you could say he's a hero in some sense, but regardless, there's something fishy there, right? There's something, or this guy is not even the real person. He's just some random person, and they're just making news out of it. Whatever that is. Again, I've said before, don't take news at face value. There are things, if everybody's pushing it on the mainstream media and they're having this uproar about it, you have to wonder, right? What's going on here? There's something deeper. You've seen it time again. So that's one thing, right? And then other people have been saying, again, I don't know the validity to it, but there's a lot of activity in Ukraine, U.S. troops and NATO supposedly on the ground, boots on the ground. There's some meetings, different, even secret espionage bombings, maybe Russia, maybe somebody else, I don't know, in Lviv on the western part of Ukraine. They're getting ready, right? They're terrified. They're petrified that Ukraine is going to go down. Even I think Nathan Rockefeller has publicly told the UK government of how bad this is going to be if they take Ukraine for the global world order. They're coming out in plain sight and telling you how it's a threat and why we need to keep these things, because there are things going on right now. Russia, I think recently there was a walkout by US, UK, Albania, and I think another country, and basically they were protesting that the children being shown as captives, or this whole sex trafficking, children being moved around, making it look like this humanitarian effort that Russia is abusing it, but they're not. In that they are saving, they're helping these kids, and so there's this whole debacle behind it. You have to follow the UN Security Council stuff and all of the presentations, but there's a lot going on there, and it's coming to a head right now. There's a lot of things. They're getting more and more desperate. There's a lot more activity going on. Supposedly, some generals, even in the U.S., some other covert things happening. People died, and whatever is going on, the activity is heightened and it's increasing right now. And so you have also the Taiwan stuff. Let's not even go into that. It's like a whole separate video. But a lot of things are happening. The Philippines and that whole Southeast Asia stuff. And so watch for those things. Tensions to increase. You have the Iran nuclear stuff. You have North Korea. There's so many things going on right now. The point is that it's all coming to a head, and you have to get ready for the removal, the dethroning of the US dollar as the world reserve currency. Because what's happening right now is a coordinated effort by the good guys, I would say, the white hats, patriots, whatever you want to call it, to take these guys down. Now, other people, if you want to get even deeper, talking about the new financial system coming in, being ushered in, countering the CBDC, the central bank digital currency, with other things. Nasera, Jazera, these kind of, talk. But we'll see about how that unfolds. The point is that within the realm of how you can interpret and understand the tangible things that are going on in the world, you can clearly see the demise, the removal, the dethroning, at the very least, the waning power of the US dollar. But if this does come through, and supposedly it's very soon, as soon as this week, and even into the coming months, summer, maybe fall, whatever it is, but things are all coming to a head right now. And so whenever the trigger events and all these conditions are met, and then there's the green light, you're going to see a succession of things like no other. Watch for hyperinflation. Watch for basically our standard of living to be changed and flipped overnight. The life that as we know it is going to change drastically. It's going to be very tough for many of us, especially if you just have, money sitting in the bank, just sitting there. And then it's just going to get, depleted, because banks will crash. Many things will be shaken up. So get yourself financially literate. Look into alternative things, gold, silver, if you want to talk about crypto and other means, right? Having some cash on hand, whatever you want to do. I've talked about before. The theme is to protect your wealth. The Lord had given me a prophetic word to speak to protect your wealth, because you have to get ready in this time. This is not a time to be in fear. It's not a time for you to, just panic, right? And I'll even leave you with this. Proverbs 3, right? We all know, verse 5, trust in the Lord with all in thine heart, and lean not unto thine own understanding. In all thy ways acknowledge him, and he shall direct thy paths. And so just remember that this time is a time to just allow the Lord to work, to clean house, to allow the good guys, whatever it is, however the working is, to come through, and for his plans to come about, but also to lean into him, ask him how to discern what to do during this time. Don't ball up into a corner. Stop just not going to work and doing certain things. Well, I guess if it's all gonna things are going to hit the fan, then I guess I might as well do nothing. No, continue doing certain things, working, whatever business, whatever things as the Lord is leading you. But just remember how you want to be a good steward of your wealth and your money and your time, your information during this time. So again, this is not a video to scare you, but to keep you informed, at least at the high level, just basic stuff, and that you have to be ready for this time. So it's a great transition. It's going to be good. I think there's a lot to come. As I've said before, we're moving and we're shifting. The devil, the evil global satanic guys, whatever name you want to call it, Illuminati, whatever, these guys will not have the final say. God has the final say, and we're in some amazing times. It's going to get rough, but it will get much better on the other side. So love you guys. Talk to you guys very soon.